right now. You are surrounded by strangers, people you will never meet, whose names you'll never know, packed around you by the thousand. And it feels completely normal. It shouldn't. It is one of the strangest things any animal has ever done, because for almost the entire history of our species, it never happened. For 300,000 years, you would have lived your whole life inside a single small band, maybe a few dozen people, rarely more than 150. You knew every face knew you. There were no strangers, because there was no such thing as a stranger. That number, around 150, isn't random. It's roughly the limit of how many real relationships a human brain can hold. Anthropologists call it Dunbar's number, and for hundreds of thousands of years, it was the invisible ceiling on human life. Your whole world fit inside it. So here is the question that should genuinely stop you. How did we get from that, a species that lived in bands of 150 people who all knew each other, to this, cities of millions of strangers stacked on top of each other? How did we build the first one? And what did it cost? It starts, like almost everything, with food. For most of our history, you couldn't stay in one place. You followed the food. But around 12,000 years ago, in the Fertile Crescent, humans learned to grow it instead, farming. And farming did something no way of life had ever done before. It produced a surplus, more food than the people growing it could eat. And a surplus changes everything. You can stop moving. You can store grain. You can feed people who don't farm. And slowly, populations began to swell past the size of a band, past the size of a village, into numbers no human group had ever reached before. We can actually watch the first fumbling attempt at city life happen. In what's now Turkey, around 9,000 years ago, thousands of people, maybe as many as 8,000, crowded onto a single mound at a place we call Çatalhöyük. And it is deeply strange to modern eyes. There are no streets. None. The houses are packed against each other, wall to wall, like a honeycomb, with no roads and no doors at ground level. To get into your home, you climbed onto the roofs and dropped in through a hole in the ceiling. The rooftops were the streets. And there is something else missing. There are no palaces, no temples, no grand tombs. Everyone's house is basically the same size. 8,000 people, and as far as we can tell, nobody was in charge. Çatalhöyük is what happens when you pile a small band species into a big city number without changing anything else. It's not really a city. It's a village that grew monstrously large and had no idea how to organize itself. And it hit a wall, because there are problems that 8,000 people simply cannot solve by everyone knowing everyone. Who gets the water, who settles the fight, who stores the grain, and who guards it. To cross that wall, humans had to invent something genuinely new. And they did it a few thousand years later, in the hot, flat river valley of southern Mesopotamia. The place was called Uruk, and by around 5,000 years ago, it was something the world had never seen. A true city. Not 8,000 people, but tens of thousands, packed behind massive walls with as many again farming the land around it. So how do you physically build a city with no machines, no steel, no concrete, no stone? In Mesopotamia, you had almost nothing to build with but the ground itself, mud. So that's what they used. They mixed river mud with straw, pressed it into molds, and left it to bake hard in the sun, the mud brick. Billions of them made by hand, one at a time. A whole civilization, quite literally, built out of dried earth. But mud brick alone doesn't make a city. The real engine was water. The city sat between two wild rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates, and the people of Uruk carved the land with canals, bending the rivers to their will, irrigating the fields, turning dry plain into the most productive farmland on earth. That engineered surplus is what fed the tens of thousands. And on top of that foundation, they raised the thing you can still picture, the ziggurat, a vast stepped mountain of mud brick rising over the flat plain, built by thousands of laborers hauling earth up ramps, a temple you could see from a day's walk away. And that is the postcard version of the first city. Walls, temples, ziggurats. But the walls are not the real invention, because the moment you put 40,000 strangers in one place, you have a problem that no wall can solve. You cannot remember it all. In a band of 150, memory runs everything. You remember who owns what, who owes whom, who can be trusted. But in a city of 40,000, human memory shatters. Nobody can hold it. So the people of Uruk invented a prosthetic memory. They started pressing marks into wet clay with a reed, little wedge-shaped signs, to record the one thing the city could not afford to forget: who had how much grain. That's it. The first writing in human history was not poetry. It was not prayer. It was accounting. Tallies of barley and cattle, scratched into clay by administrators keeping track of a city too big to remember itself. We invented writing to do the bookkeeping, and once you see that, you see what a city really is. The walls and temples are just the body. The real invention is invisible. It's the system that lets 40,000 strangers live packed together without tearing each other apart. Writing to remember. Money to trade with people you'll never see again. Laws to settle fights between people who don't love each other. Kings and priests and officials to make decisions no single person can make by knowing everyone. The city is a machine for manufacturing trust between strangers. That is the thing that got built in Uruk, not just a place, but an operating system for living beyond the limits of your own brain. Every city that has ever existed, including the one around you, is running a version of it. So look up from this for a second. The person who grew your food, you will never meet them. The stranger in the next car, holding your life in their hands at 70 miles an hour, you will never know their name, and you trust them anyway. That trust between millions of strangers is not natural. No ape has it. It was invented brick by brick, tally by tally, in a town made of dried mud by a river 5,000 years ago. You were built for a world of 150 people. You are living in the machine we built to escape it.